Hi, have you ever wondered about witches? Why do they wear those pointed hats? Why are they green? Why do they ride broomsticks? Well, if you've wondered, I have too. So I'm going to try to answer some of those questions about witches. So what's the deal with the witch hats? Why a pointed hat? Well, it goes all the way back to between the 2nd and 4th century in the lost city of China, when some mummified remains were found, and they were said to be the remains of two sisters that were accused of witchcraft. Well, they were buried with their pointed hats on. So this may be the first idea where we got pointed hats for witches. What about witches flying brooms? What's the deal with that? Well, there's a couple of theories on that. The first one, and probably the most popular one, is R-rated, so I can't tell you about it. So you're gonna have to Google that yourself. It has something to do with broomstick handle, some potions that they've created, some essential oils, and putting them in strange places. But let's go with the second theory. The second theory was that it had pagan origins and that the farmers would leap and dance with pitchforks and poles and brooms by the light of the full moon to encourage their plants to grow. Now, the first known depiction of a witch flying a broom was in the 1400s by a man named French poet named Martin Lafranc, and it had to do with a book called Des Champions de Dames, and so you can look that up if you'd like to. But probably the most popularized version began with The Wizard of Oz. I wonder why witches are green. Well, I really couldn't find a very good answer for that. The only answer I could find was that during the witch trials, the witches were punished. They were beaten and bruised, and so their bruises would turn that color, and then they'd eventually get kind of a gangrene, and they think maybe that's it. But again, it was probably very much popularized with The Wizard of Oz. Were witches really burned at the stake? Well, they were in a few of the European countries, but in England and here in the colonies of America, they were hung. Witches were not burned in America, they were hung. So what caused the witch hysteria that happened in the colonies in the later 1600s? We all think about Salem being where everything happened, but it actually began in Connecticut in 1647. There was a young woman named Elsa Young who was hung as a witch. And in that area, there were 46 that were accused and 11 were executed. But also in Virginia, even though they were accusing people of witchcraft, they had a law that made it a crime to accuse somebody of witchcraft, and that was back in 1655. And they had at least a couple dozen people that were accused of witchcraft, but none of those people were executed. So that brings us back to Salem. So Salem, the witch trials happened between 1692 and 1693. It started with a couple of young girls. Their names were Elizabeth Parris and Abigail Williams. They were 9 and 11 years old, so they were pretty young. But they were having these screaming fits and seizures and contortions, and the doctor couldn't figure out why. So what do? You just say it's a case of witchcraft possession. And that those two girls went on to accuse witches. They accused Sarah Osborne and a woman named Tituba, who was the slave of one of the girls. Father owned her. And the other person accused was Sarah Good. And that was the beginning of the witch trials in Salem. But the first person to actually be hung in Salem was Bridget Bishop. Now, there was 19 that were hung, and one man, Corey Giles, that was actually crushed to death with stones put upon him. Now, what was really going on? Well, there's some theories about that too. The first theory is that These were rebellious teenagers that were responding against the very strict Puritan authority. A second possibility is that they were suffering from convulsive ergotism, and this is caused by a plant that gets the fungi ergot. And in the Salem area at that time, a plant that was very popular for getting that was called rye, was abundant in the area. Third theory is that they were suffering from an outbreak of encephalitis, which is an inflammation of the brain, and this is caused by insects and birds. So the symptoms for this would include fever, headache, seizures, neck rigidity, tremors, abnormal eye movement. So this could have been another possibility as to why these girls were doing this. So now that you know a thing or two about witches, tell me, are you a good witch or are you a bad witch? Let me know. Thanks for watching my video. I hope you enjoyed that. If you'd like to see more of my videos, please hit the subscribe button. Have a great day. Thanks. Bye.